In this, our second nugget on project communications, or what I'm calling communications in action, we're going to focus on the lower part of the process areas for project communications, distributing information, getting the right information in the right time frame, in the right format, into the right hands. And if we do an effective job of distributing the project information, we have done our job in project communications. Really, by effectively distributing the information, we have in fact managing the stakeholders' expectations, because by giving them the right information at the right time in the right format, we have in fact ensured that they are getting all of the information that they require that was identified back in our stakeholder management. And in fact, we are truly managing our stakeholder expectations. And the information, the right information at the right time in the right format, that's our project performance. The project status details that our stakeholders are looking for. Our weekly status, our monthly status, our stakeholder status, our steering committee status, etc., etc. So let's roll up our sleeves and see communications in action. The first step in communications in action is to distribute the information. It's getting the information out there. Before we worry about the actual distribution, we need to spend some time thinking about what do we really need to distribute? What is the information that our stakeholders are looking for? What do they want? And how are we going to distribute it? What format? Voice, reports, email, ... Communications, if effectively done, is going to consider the sender-receiver models that we've already discussed. It's going to consider the appropriate choice of media. It's going to look at the writing style. If we're using a formal report, are we using the effective writing style? We're going to talk a little later in this nugget about effective meeting techniques. We're going to look at how we're going to effectively distribute all of the information that our stakeholders are looking for. Before we truly put project communications into action, I think it's important that we go back and have a quick review of what needs to be communicated. Our project communications plan should have identified each and every component that needs to be communicated, but to review that, to put it into a very defined state, some of the key components that we need to be communicating is project status. You need to ensure that the project stakeholders are getting the project status information, that it is accurate, that it is timely, and that it is complete. If it's good news, if the project is on time, on budget, you need to distribute that information as part of communications in action. If it's bad news, you need to also communicate that information. It's no good trying to change the facts. It's no good trying to modify the status. It's no good trying to finesse the status to make your project look better. It's your job as a project manager to communicate the proper project status. In a previous nugget, we talked about change management and how we implement effective change management in an organization. Part of change management is implementing changes to the overall project plan, where the project plan consists of the scope, the time, the cost, the quality expectations, etc. for your plan. When change management is executed, it's your job as a project manager to ensure that those changes to the project plan, whether they're changes to the project end date, changes to the project budget, or simply changes to the project scope, are effectively communicated throughout the entire project. You need to receive, as part of project communications, team performance. You need to know how individual team members are doing. You need to know whether Bill or Sally or Betty are on target for each and every one of the tasks that they're working on. They need to know, you need to know if the time they spent on the task this week is equivalent to what you had planned for them to spend this week. You need to know if they're spending more time on tasks. You need to know if tasks are being completed early. All of this information needs to be communicated to you. So as you can see, project communications is not a one-way street. Project communications is not all about you, the project manager, distributing information to the project stakeholders. Project communications is all about the team communicating their status, their information, their problems, their worries, their concerns to you so that you can deal with it as a project manager and, if appropriate, communicate it back to the project stakeholders. One of the key methods for project communications are meetings. And we will address meetings more later in this nugget. Meetings are often considered to be time wasters. Meetings are often considered to be non-effective forms of communications. I would like to suggest just the opposite. Meetings, well-managed meetings, can be very effective forms of communications. In fact, well-managed meetings are probably the single most effective form of communications you will ever have on your project. As I said, in just a few minutes in this nugget, we will address some of the ways you can ensure meetings are effectively managed throughout your project. As we're talking about communications, and I mentioned earlier in terms of team performance and status, if there are problems on your project, if a team member is having problems, or if you as a project manager have discovered through team performance reporting significant project problems, you need to be comfortable communicating project problems to your project stakeholders, and your team members need to be comfortable communicating project problems to you. If people fear delivering bad news, they won't deliver bad news. They will hide bad news. And if your team member isn't giving you bad news, then you won't truly know how your project is doing, and you won't be able to communicate proper project status to your stakeholders. If the team members are hiding bad news from you, you can't deal with the bad news and make it go away. Or if you and the powers you have as a project manager can't make bad news go away, you need to communicate that to your project stakeholders. You need to communicate that to senior management to ensure that they take the actions necessary to make the bad news go away, to help you get your project back on track. So these are just a few of the key components that you need to focus on when you're putting your project communications into action. In order to ensure that you're putting communications into action appropriately, you need to ensure that you're communicating effectively. You need to ensure you're using the appropriate style, and in often case different styles for each form of communications. When you're communicating in person, you need to be very aware of your voice, your tone of voice, your body language, your need and ability to look the receiver of your message, the people you're communicating with, in the eye. You need to be aware of all of the verbal and nonverbal clues that you're sending. You need to ensure that your message, what you're saying, is supported by your tone, your body language. At the same time, you need to ensure that the body language of the receiver, of the person you're talking to, is appropriate as well. Are they interested? Are they nodding? Or are they looking towards the ceiling or looking towards the floor? You need to be observing the body language of the person you're talking to make sure, again, that they are effectively participating in the communications. It's often said that in person is the easiest form of communications possible. You have all possible communications channels open, and all possible communications channels, the verbal, the nonverbal, the tone, the body language, etc., available to you and in an environment that you can manage. You need to use a different set of skills when you're communicating by telephone. You need to ensure that your message is clear, that your spoken words are absolutely clear, because you can't rely on body language. You can rely on tone, but body language and other nonverbal clues are non-existent over the telephone. You can't look the person in the eye at the other end of the telephone to see if they are listening to you, or if in fact they've got the phone on their desk and they're typing away at their email or doing some totally other activity and saying, uh-huh, yes, occasionally. Also on the line of telephone communications, you need to ensure that you're using voicemail appropriately. When you call someone and you get their voicemail, don't just say, "Hi, it's Steve. Call me back when you get a chance." it would be more appropriate to say, "Hi, it's Steve. I'm calling to discuss X. Here are my opinions. Here's what I think we should do about it. Call me back as soon as you can. I'd love to get your opinions and bring this issue to closure." Also on the area of voicemail, make sure your voicemail message is appropriate. It's not good enough in a business environment to simply say, "Hi, it's Steve. I'm not here. Leave a message." An appropriate voicemail greeting would be, "Hi, it's Steve. Today's date is, I'm out of the office until noon. Please leave a detailed message and I will be more than happy to return your call and discuss this item with you as soon as I return this afternoon." Ensure that you're using all of the tools, all of the options available to you to ensure that your telephone conversations are complete and as meaningful as possible. When you're dealing with written, when you're dealing with reports, make sure that your reports have the right format, make sure that your reports are well presented, make sure that your reports are typo-free, grammatical-free, make sure that the information presented in the report is in fact the information that you want to be received. I have an instance from my career where I produced a report. I agonized over the content in the reports. I ensured that each and every statement and each and every bullet that I made in the report was absolutely accurate, that absolutely portrayed the message that I wanted to deliver. And I got so focused on the body of the report that I forgot about the presentation of the report. I didn't change the headers and footers in the report. I didn't update the table of contents in the report. I actually even did a fairly poor job of updating the title page for the report, that it marginally represented the message, the intent of the report. When I presented that report to my acceptor for review, within 10 minutes the report was back on my desk and saying, "This is inappropriate, this is unacceptable." When I asked why, I said I really focused on the content. I really ensured that everything in there was exactly what you were looking for. And the sponsor said, "I didn't get that far. When I took one look at the report, I saw the title page was incomplete, the headers and footers were representing a different document, the table of contents had no bearing on what I thought was in the report. I decided the whole report was a piece of garbage and just took it back to you." So ensure that you are using the appropriate tools, that your reports are complete, that your reports have the right information, that they are professionally prepared, that they're typo-free, that the grammar is appropriate, that they're written in the right tone and style for the message you're trying to deliver. Much the same applies for presentations. Ensure your presentations, the slide deck that you're using for your presentations, has the appropriate bullets, that it is well formatted and well structured, that your presentation has a flow to it, that you start most presentations with an agenda, that you stick to the agenda, possibly even bringing the agenda item back up as you move from agenda item to agenda item, and that you have a proper conclusion. Much the same could be said for poorly prepared presentations as poorly prepared reports. Within the first 2 minutes of a report, the people in the audience say, "Ooh, this report isn't very well prepared. Look at that. The format is different. Each slide is using a different style. Ooh, I guess he didn't put much care and attention into this presentation, so I think I'm going to turn my mind elsewhere and focus on some other more pressing matters that I can do while appearing to be interested and appearing to follow on with the presentation." So again, make it professional, make it appropriate, make it contain the information that you want the receivers, the people in the audience, to receive. Email. A lot of people resist using email, saying it's impersonal, it doesn't have the formality of reports. Emails are often full of poorly phrased sentences, typos. We're getting very prone to using short forms. We're not typing words out. We're trying to get brief. People are starting to use emoticons into emails to try to put that tone, that inflection into it. You really need to treat emails as another form of formal reports. You need to make sure your emails are well composed, that they're delivering the right message, that the style is appropriate for the message that you, the project manager, are trying to deliver. A personal favorite that I have for project communications and communicating effectively is develop project websites. Virtually everybody in business today has access to an internet. Virtually everybody today has some familiarity with browsing the web. If you create a very simple web, it doesn't have to have hours and days and weeks of complex coding onto it. A very simple web structure with a very simple menu front end presenting the information that you need to communicate. Status reports, action items, fault reports, change reports, all in a collected, organized fashion, all within that project website, is a tremendous communications tool that you have, providing direct, immediate access to everybody on your team, to everybody in the stakeholder community, to all of the relevant project information that you wish to communicate. And rapidly becoming a personal favorite of mine is instant messengers. Instant message is a very easy way to communicate instantly, obviously by the name, to a close group of team members, to a close group of project stakeholders, to have rapid, unintrusive, uninterrupting communications to get specific information that you require. I find instant messenger personally to be more effective than either telephone or email. Email often gets lost in inbox cluster. If you send an email to your project sponsor and they have 28 unread messages, your email is just going to filter into the bottom of the unread inbox and become the 29th message and may not get read for hours or even days. If you call by telephone, telephones can be very interrupting, very abrasive. If they were in the middle of a thought process, if they're in the middle of a conversation, we typically drop everything to pick up the telephone. Therefore, using the telephone for simple requests can actually very much interrupt the receiver's, the person you're calling's work schedule, workflow. I find that Instant Messenger provides the benefits of email. You can create detailed text. It doesn't get lost in the inbox shuffle. It is there at the top. And if the receiver is busy carrying on a conversation, needs to finish a thought process, we'll deal with the instant messenger 5 minutes later. It's saved and preserved, and then they can respond to you when it's appropriate to them and give you back the detailed information. So again, you need to ensure that you're using your appropriate tools, and that the tools change. Your style of communications is going to be different depending on whether it's in-person, telephone reports, presentation, emails, project websites, and instant messenger. Remembering that it's your job as the project manager to ensure that the appropriate information is communicated throughout your project team, you need to use and understand all of these tools effectively to ensure that communications is open, honest, complete, reliable, timely on your project.
The next process is managing stakeholder expectations, ensuring that we have effective management in place for all of our stakeholder expectations.
Essentially, stakeholder management is ensured by communicating, 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 and if you're really not sure that the message has been delivered properly, communicate one more time. And then more importantly, go back to the stakeholders and validate that they have received the information that they require, that you are properly delivering the information they need, that you are managing their expectations, that they are not being surprised by project status, they are not being surprised by project details, that you are effectively managing their information requirements, and that you're effectively managing their expectations. Early in my project management career, I sat in on a project management training session, and the instructor stood up there and said, as a project manager, you need to go around advocating your mandate. And I thought about it for a while. Advocate your mandate. I don't even think I know what that means. But sure enough, the instructor went on to explain what he was trying to say. You, as a project manager, need to advocate your mandate. You need to ensure that you are front and center delivering the message of your project, that you are telling everyone who cares what your project is doing, you are telling everyone who cares how the project is doing, and you're going back, doing that loop back check, doing that sanity check, doing that pulse check, and saying, are you happy with the project? Are you getting the information that you need? What else can I do to ensure you are an effective participant in my project? Excuse me for advocating my mandate. My project is the most important thing that I am doing right now, and I want to do everything in my power to ensure you are also happy that you are getting what you need. In addition to effective communications, I found a very effective way for ensuring stakeholder satisfaction, for managing their expectations, is to develop a follow-up or issue log. Every time you make a promise to the stakeholder, put it into your issue management log. Give the issue a name. Here's what I promised to the stakeholder. Here's when I made the promise. Here's when I promised to get the information back to them. And here's the current status. And it's even a good idea to share this issue management log with the stakeholders. Here are all of the promises that I've made. Here are the promises of when I'll get information back to you. And here's the current status. And there's nothing wrong with making a promise that say, I'll have this information to you by tomorrow close of business. And by tomorrow close of business, you realize you don't have the information that they need, that you've had a problem gathering the information. You need to make a quick phone call. Again, manage their expectations. Say, hi, it's Steve. I know I promised you this by today, but I'm not able to deliver it. Would it be okay if I give you the information by noon tomorrow? I believe I'm going to be able to have it for you noon tomorrow. You're managing their expectations, you're managing all of the issues, and you're following up on all the promises that you've made to ensure that no one is disappointed, that their expectations are being properly managed. Consistency is a key. As discussed in the issue log, if you promise to do something by close of business tomorrow and you're unable to deliver by close of business tomorrow, make a phone call, send that instant message, send an email that says, I made a promise. Due to these difficulties, I'm unable to complete it, but I believe I will be able to satisfy that by noon tomorrow. And then again, either satisfy it or do another follow-up that says, I'm still having problems, here's when I'll get back to you. Ensure consistency. Another area you need to ensure consistency is when you deliver your project information to the stakeholders. If you consistently deliver your weekly status report to your project sponsor by Tuesday at noon, make sure that you always deliver that status report to the project sponsor by Tuesday at noon, or if there is a problem, alert the project stakeholder to the fact that you're not going to make it by Tuesday at noon due to these reasons, and they will get it by Wednesday at noon or Wednesday at 3, or again, manage their expectations. I had an instance on my project where I have always, again, delivered the weekly status report by Tuesday noon. Several weeks into the project, many weeks into the project, a Tuesday noon came and went, and the project sponsor didn't get the status report from me, and I hadn't managed their expectations. Tuesday end of day came and went, and the sponsor still didn't get their status report. Wednesday noon, a day late, came and went, and the project sponsor didn't get their status report. Wednesday end of day came, and the project sponsor still didn't get the status report. So I was now a good day and a half late for a piece of information that the sponsor was used to consistently receiving from me by Tuesday noon. What had happened? I had taken 2 days off and forgot to alert the project manager that I was taking, or the project sponsor, to the fact that I was taking 2 days off, and that in fact the status report would be 2 days late. What had happened? The project sponsor went into a panic. By Wednesday afternoon, when the status report still wasn't delivered, the project sponsor was assuming the worst has happened. Oh, Steve has always been so reliable. He's always delivered these accurate, valuable status reports to me, but he hasn't delivered one this week. There must be something really bad on this project going on. There must be something really awful happening, and really worked himself into a very high state of panic because the status report wasn't delivered on time, where in fact, I admit it, I failed. I didn't manage expectations, but the status report was not late due to any project delivery challenges, was simply late because I had taken 2 days off and had not properly managed my stakeholders' expectations. You need to ensure you're managing the stakeholders' expectations, that you're following up, doing the pulse check, making sure they're getting the information that they need so that they can participate in the project. Probably the single most important thing that you as a project manager need to communicate is going to be project status, or in the term of the PMBOK, performance reporting. You as a project manager need to prepare and provide weekly status reports to the project sponsor, and you as the project manager need to receive weekly status reports from your team member. You as a project manager should be providing and preparing monthly status reports, probably also to the sponsor, but also to senior management. And you should be providing and preparing summary, milestone, probably on a quarterly basis, to the project steering committee and other appropriate stakeholders in your project. So what does a good weekly status report look like? Let's have a look. A weekly status report should be very detailed focus. You're going to have the tombstone information at the top, the name of the project, who's reporting it, and what the reporting period is going to be. Again, the expectation is you'll get one of these from each of your team members, and you will be expected to provide one of these summarizing the team member information to your project sponsor. So what's going to be in it? What I was able to accomplish this week. Here's what I was able to do based on the project plan. This is what I've done to move our project plan forward. Just as important, here's things that I should have been working on this week, but due to time constraints, due to other priorities, I was unable to work on. A very important part for a weekly status report is unplanned work accomplished. This is work that was not in the project plan that your team members are working on. This is probably a key clue to you that someone is approaching your team in the hallways, that someone is asking your team to do unauthorized work on the project, i.e. they're trying to circumvent the change management process. The next component we need to have on the weekly status report is here's what's in the plan that I plan to work on next week. So this is what you can track me on. This is what you can measure me against when you're reviewing my status report next week. And lastly, an area that I always hope is empty as a project manager are the problems, the warnings, and the issues. Specific issues and areas on the project that your team member wants to alert you to. You need to ensure that you're open to problems, issues, and warnings, because that's the only way your team members can feel confident that they can communicate project details to you. So that's the weekly status report. Let's have a look at a monthly status report and what should be in a monthly status report. A monthly status report is being prepared for a very different audience. A monthly status report is going to be prepared for senior management. The monthly status report may be prepared for your steering committee. So unlike the weekly status report, which is very factual, very detailed, very micro-focused, your monthly status report has to be summary, has to be narrative-focused, has to be macro-focused, so that the senior executives are getting the summarized information that they need to know about your project. So the first major area for your monthly status report are going to be the major accomplishments this month. Here is my major accomplishment number 1. Here's the second thing that I accomplished, and so on. You probably need to provide a detail on the financial status. Doesn't need to be line by line, probably as simple as total project budget, here's what I've spent to date, here's my estimate to complete, and here's any variance that I need to report. Same level of summary information should be provided in terms of the project schedule. Here's how much effort, how much work has been done on the project to date, here's the work that is remaining to be done on the project, and here's the percent complete. And then finally, major issues. The same way you expect your team members to provide all of the problems, issues, and warnings to you, you need to provide any specific issues, problems, and warnings to senior management. Now, many of the problems and issues and warnings that are going to be provided to you by your team members are problems, issues, and warnings that you can deal with yourself within the confines and powers that you have as a project manager. You need to only be surfacing, you need to only be making senior management aware of specific issues that are beyond your power, beyond your authority to deal with as the project manager. And finally would be a progress or a milestone status report. The progress milestone status report would follow a very similar format to the monthly status report, but would typically be done on a less frequent basis, possibly even as infrequently as quarterly, and would go to other project stakeholders who do not receive the monthly status report. So it is an interim, high-level, virtual milestone status report that says here are the key milestones, 5, 6, or 7 for your project, and here's how we're doing, so that other stakeholders, other people who are interested in the project can have a high-level view of the project and have a high-level view of how well the project is doing, and more importantly, have that high-level view of when the project will be completed for the organization. While our discussions on communications management thus far have been focused on the actual communications process, delivering the information to your project stakeholders, another key component to project communications in action is ensuring ongoing access to your project information. You need to ensure that there's easy and ready access to each weekly status report, to each monthly status report, to all of the action items, to all of the change requests that have been produced for the life of your project. You need to ensure you have some method in place to ensure that any project stakeholders can go back and say, I seem to remember there was something on the status report from 2 months ago that I was supposed to follow up on, but I've forgotten what it was. They need to have an easy way to go back and retrieve that historical communications piece. One very effective way I found of doing that is simply to create a project directory on a LAN somewhere. Go out and create a shared folder on a LAN and start to build folders underneath that for all of the appropriate pieces of communications history that needs to be preserved, for action items, for change requests, for decision reports, and so on. You need to be able to store the monthly status reports for each month that your project has been actively delivering. You need to store the problem reports, the project plans, the weekly status reports, and so on. Each and every formal communications piece that you produce on your project needs to be archived and need to be easily and effectively available to anyone who has the rights, the authority, the need to retrieve and view that project information. As I just showed you, one very easy way to do that is through LAN directory. As discussed earlier, I personally am a huge fan of creating project websites and providing that same information in a project website. To me, the advantage of doing it through a website as opposed to a LAN directory is the website presents the information typically in a read-only format, i.e. HTML, so that if someone decides after the fact that says, oh, I don't like that work assignment that was put in that monthly status report from 2 months ago, or I don't like that comment, I think I'm going to go in and change it. If it's simply on a project directory and the security is not set properly, everyone on the project team has read-write capabilities to that. If it's on a website, it immediately restricts access because it is in a read-only format. The other advantage is often with project websites, depending on your project network and infrastructure, often websites can be browsed from home while working from home with far greater ease than actually having to connect to a network and getting on and mapping network drives to get at the information through a shared drive on a network. So again, different strategies, different solutions will work for different projects. You need to ensure that you're developing the strategy that will work best for you. And sometimes the best strategy is simply a binder. Make a copy of each and every piece of project communications, put 3-hole punch in it, and put it into a binder. It doesn't provide easy access to everyone from their desk, but it certainly provides easy access for everyone on the project team if they know where to go find the binders. And some pieces of project communications, often contractual documents, acceptance forms, need to be in written format because the signature is important. So even if you're in the electronic world of LAN directories or websites, there will be certain components of your project communications history that formal hard copies to preserve signatures need to be preserved, and that needs to be done in the traditional paper method using binders. But the information needs to be available. Your team members, your project sponsor need to know where to go find that information, need to go how to go back into history, need to know how to get the access to the information that they need to allow them to continue to do their job on your project. As mentioned earlier in this nugget, I personally believe meetings are one of the most effective forms of communications that you can use as a project manager. Meetings allow you to ensure that a common message, the same message, is delivered to a large group of people, that all people who need to receive the message receive the same message at the same time. They can be very efficient, they can be very effective. Now that's probably a contrary view to what you have or what most people on your project team are going to have about meetings. Most people think meetings are ineffective. Most people think meetings are wasted times. Most people can think a trip to the dentist to get a tooth drilled is less painful than sitting through a project status review meeting. We need to change that. You need to ensure that meetings are effectively run on your project. And here are a few tips and pointers that you can use to ensure your meetings are effective. Number one, absolutely every meeting needs to have an agenda. Everybody needs to know in advance what that agenda is. They need to know why they're invited to the meeting, and they need to know how they can contribute to the meeting, or they need to know what they can expect to receive from the meeting. The agenda has to be the guide for the meeting. The agenda has to be the guiding force to ensure that the agenda items are met. On that same topic, we were talking about so that they know what they can expect to contribute to the meeting, so that they can know what to expect to receive from the meeting. You need to ensure that the right people attend the meeting, and that only the right people attend the meeting. If the attendee does not have anything to contribute to the meeting, or will not directly benefit from the meeting, they should not be invited to the meeting. Everybody in that meeting should either be a direct participant providing value, or should be a receiver of value from the meeting. You should not have casual onlookers. You should not have people there simply, oh, I thought I could learn something. The attendees should be focused and pointed on the meeting. That ensures that the agenda, again, is adhered to. They have a reason for being there, and the non-appropriate attendees, by not having them there, won't drag your meeting, change the agenda, and bring up non-critical agenda items that are inappropriate or not of value to the participants. Make sure the right people are attending in your meeting. As you're going through your meeting, if items come up that cannot be resolved in the meeting, if items come up that need additional information, if items come up that two people in the meeting should review and discuss and present a recommendation, generate follow-ups, generate action items. Do not drag a meeting down while two participants in the meeting have a 10-minute discussion on how to resolve something. Give them an action item. Say, go away, resolve this, and then report back to the meeting attendees what the resolution is going to be, or worst case, let's schedule another meeting to review your recommendation and alert all the remaining attendees of what that recommendation is going to be. Start your meetings on time and end your meetings on time. If people know a meeting is scheduled to go from 9:30 to 10 o'clock and they know it's going to start at 9:30, they will be there at 9:30. My experience is meetings that don't start on time, they're scheduled for 9:30, but by history they're not going to start until 9:35 or 9:40. People quickly begin to recognize that, and they deliberately don't show up until 9:35 or 9:40. And then all of a sudden the meeting isn't starting till 9:45 because the stragglers are coming in. Publish the time and stick to the time. Start it on time, even if everyone isn't there. And end on time. If they've set aside until 10 o'clock in the morning to attend a meeting, ensure the meeting finishes at 10 o'clock and that they're free to go back to their desk to take on the work that they had scheduled to begin at 10 o'clock. End on time, even if it means that all of the items on the agenda were not accomplished. If the meeting end time is reached, say, well, that's it. We have to adjourn now. I'll have to schedule another meeting for tomorrow from 9:30 to 10, same time okay with everyone, and complete. People need to be able to expect when to show up for a meeting and need to be able to expect that the meeting will end on time so that they can manage their personal schedule and ensure that they are valuable participants in the meeting. And finally, publish minutes. Make sure that everybody is aware of the conclusions reached in the meeting. Make sure everybody is aware of the items discussed, and that everybody takes the same vision, the same message, the same conclusions away that the meeting reached. And do that through well-documented minutes, and ensure the minutes are published hopefully within 24 hours of the meeting's conclusion. Meeting minutes that are published a week or 2 weeks later are virtually useless. By then people have forgotten the core of the meeting and cannot validate that, yes, in fact, these minutes do reflect my understanding of what what conclusions we reached and therefore are meaningful and relevant for your project. Meetings can be valuable tools. People can come to meetings feeling energized. People can come to meetings feeling that they are going to be valued participants in the meeting, that they have something to give to the meeting, or that they will exit the meeting having learned something valuable. Treat meetings as a valuable tool and work very hard to eliminate the perception that meetings are time wasters. They are not. They are critical, and you need to use them effectively on your project to ensure that you maximize people's time, that you maximize the distribution of consistent information throughout your project team.
This concludes our nugget. This concludes 2 nuggets on project communications management. This nugget was focused on communications in action. The key to this nugget, the key to all communications, is effectively distributing the information, making sure that you have the right information in the right format, that it's going to the right people in the right time frame, using the right vehicle, that you're providing weekly status reports to the appropriate shareholders, and you're doing this via email, that you're providing monthly status reports in a summary format, probably graphical, to senior management, and it's being done as a PowerPoint presentation, that you're following up on action items, that you're effectively distributing all of the information related to the project. And with effective distribution of information, we're well on the way to effectively managing the stakeholders' expectations. In the last nugget, we identified our stakeholders and we identified their requirements. Now we're managing them. With effective management of the stakeholder expectations, we're increasing the likelihood of project acceptance, we're negotiating in advance, we're dealing with any issues, any concerns, we're alleviating the fears that the stakeholders may have about the project. And the key aspect to doing that is reporting the project performance. We're providing the status.
This concludes our nugget on project communications in action. I hope this video has been informative for you, and thank you very much for viewing.